Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? It's really nice to see everybody here today. Um, Welcome to Internship Showcase. My name is Patty Kravitz, and I am the Associate Director for Experiential Learning and Student Employment in the Career and Professional Development Center. Working with me here today is my colleague, Rachel Rosenfeld. Rachel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Rosenfeld. I am one of the career consultants in the CPDC, and I work with Mellon College of Science.
So before we hear from the panelists today, I want to briefly go over the purpose of Internship Showcase and talk to you a little bit about the structure of what we're going to do. So first of all, what is the purpose of Internship Showcase? The purpose is twofold. First of all, it's a way to explore various job functions and industries and career opportunities. And secondly, and most important, it's a way for you to learn how to get an internship in your field of interest, from submitting your application to actually getting the offer. The panelists that we have with us here today were selected and invited by the CPDC to share their internship experiences, as well as the efforts and strategies that they use to obtain them. I'm very happy to welcome and introduce our panelists in order of their presentation. We have 6 panelists with us today. First is Ariana Garcia Guerrero. She is a junior majoring in international relations and politics, and she worked as a research assistant for the American Foreign Policy. Next is Demetria White. Demetria is a sophomore majoring in cognitive neuroscience. She worked as a research assistant at SUNY Medical Center. Our next panelist is Alex Su, a sophomore, math and science, and he worked as an undergraduate research assistant for the CMU Physics Department. Next is Eden Harrell. She is a senior civil engineer who worked as a research assistant for the CMU CEE Department. After her will be Ariana Rosario, a junior in decision science, who did research for the Zoo Miami and the Elephant Department. And finally, we have Simran, and Simran is a senior math, and she did research at Williams College Math Department. So the way it's going to work today is each panelist will present for 3 to 5 minutes. Now, you may ask questions at any time, but we ask that you put them in the chat and we will address them after the presentation. Audience, please make sure that your videos are off, except for panelists, and your mics are muted. You can, again, ask questions in the chat at any time, and we will address them during the Q&A after all the presenters have finished. Now, for the exciting part, the panelist presentations. And as I said, each panelist will take 3 to 5 minutes to share the presentation.
Hello everybody, my name is Demetria White and I am a second-year undergraduate student majoring in cognitive neuroscience with a special interest in neurological disorders. This summer I worked at SUNY Downstate in Brooklyn, where I conducted neural and behavioral research on the fMR1 knockout mouse model of autism spectrum disorder. Next slide. The application process was rather simple and straightforward. One of my best friends sent me the flyer, and I later received the flyer again from Weill Cornell, as I was in a mentorship program and they sent us a lot of opportunities. The actual application required only a short essay and an interview, although the interview was unconventional, where I asked the mentors and coordinators questions about the program instead of a traditional interview. Next slide. So my responsibilities included designing and conducting an experiment to observe how musical therapy may affect people with autism spectrum disorder. We conducted this by using the fMR1 knockout mouse model of autism spectrum disorder. Mice with this gene removed display characteristics of Fragile X syndrome, which is the largest monogenic cause of ASD. We played music for the mice and then observed their behavior and compared it. This program is perfect for students that are interested in pursuing a PhD or an MD PhD. It serves you well for a future in research, and I'm a current research assistant on campus, and I can see how I benefit from it every day. The only downside to the program was the duration of it. It only lasted 8 weeks, which included 2 weeks of lectures and labs in neuroanatomy. I'm grateful to my mentors, and I'm grateful for my best friend for sending the opportunity to me.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alex Tui. I'm currently a sophomore in math and physics. Oh, and fun fact about me is an esports enthusiast. So my experience was with the undergraduate research office at CMU here. And the application process was a natural extension between me and my mentor. My mentor was Professor Fingstra, and I took his advanced quantum physics in first year. So I kind of worked with him over the winter and in extension over the spring semester. And the URL sent out emails about this opportunity of SURF, a summer fellowship, and I applied. Can we go to the next slide? So the application process with URO, and it requires a proposal, 2 letters of recommendation, and some information about myself. And I think there was a proposal that requires a very detailed idea of your research. I want to talk about more in the next slide. The admission of this fellowship is actually happening right now. So if you go onto URO's website, and you can apply it right now, and the decision will come out early April. So, and can we go to the next slide? Yeah, so before I talk about how the application process went through, I want to kind of just talk a little about what I did in the project. What I worked on with Professor Fingstra is we worked on a project that he has been studying a couple of years, the quantum path integral, where I would get to develop a animation like the one you can see right here that generates a lot of path integrals. And this serves a kind of like a pedagogical significance for students who are learning quantum physics to start with. It's all been very fun. And for me, the most takeaway is I learned a language, a computer programming language, well known in the industry called Mathematica from scratch. And I kind of get very familiar with it after 3 months of working with it. And my reflection is really, this is the first official research experience that I've ever had in the physics area. And I think in order for one to gain the most from a research project is to plan ahead of time and designate a goal, but this goal can be adjustable within the process. And we would be able to take away what we do in the first experience with research. Well, I'm really grateful to Dr. Fingstra for taking me up on this project. I think he is still working on this project. I hope one day I can see the publication. The other is I want to stress that, so for every research that, especially for our undergrads, we don't have a lot of prior knowledge to enter. What I suggest is we can take at least a third or a quarter of the time to learn the tools that will be needed in the process. And really for physics undergrads doing research, we are just really catching up ourselves of the cutting edge things and projects scholars and professors are doing. And last point is start looking early and don't be afraid to express your enthusiasm to your instructors and professors. This opportunity, I think I'm very lucky to address this in front of you guys, is because I kind of talked to Professor Fingstra way ahead of I know this opportunity. I was really interested in working with him. And this opportunity only served as a placeholder for my work to him. I'm really grateful that I had a mentor before I find out this project. For other undergraduates out there, I encourage you to get connected to the courses you like and the topics you love. You would be able to, if you're interested in research, you would be able to apply to this kind of opportunity easily with your current relationship with your professor or mentor. Can we, if you click on the video, can you show it? Can we probably try to, I'm not sure if this will work. This is a very simple demo that I developed for a quantum path integral. This is a plane wave demo where these little lines signifies the individual path where the particles can take, and the overall picture is the wave function. This is my presentation. Thank you for your time, and good luck.
Thank you, Alex. Eden, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Eden Harrell. I am a senior in civil engineering here at CMU. My main interests are water resources and environmental justice. Those are the main focuses I take with my coursework and outside of my coursework as well. This past summer, I worked with two professors on a research project, both of them within the civil and environmental engineering department. Next slide. Okay, great. So I wasn't originally sure if I was going to do a more traditional industry internship or a research project. It wasn't even on my mind, but this project came up on Handshake and I read the description and I was really intrigued by the concept, which I'll talk about a bit about later. So after reading it, I applied, and turns out the project was run by one of the professors that I was currently in one of their classes, my water resources class. So that professor reached out and we scheduled a short informal interview, and then I got it. I think it was probably helpful that I was in that class with him and he knew my work ethic, etc. Next slide. Right, so the core of the project was this equity and resilience study of Pittsburgh's transportation network through studying flooding and the actual transportation network. So we ran these traffic simulation models and made conclusions based on the traffic and speed maps that we created. This combined certain sectors. It was a steep learning curve for me because I'm mostly water resources focused and I had to learn quickly about transportation, but that was really exciting for me. And I am still working with the professors. We kind of we had some conclusions that we presented at the end of the summer, but decided that we wanted to continue the research and make it more granular. So that's what I'm still doing that right now. It's still really fun. So if you have the chance to do some long-term research, I would also recommend that. And yeah, I've just had a really good time because you get to get into the nitty-gritty of your field which is something that I don't know if I would have gotten in an industry internship, perhaps. But I think that if you're considering doing research, I would really look into it because it is really rewarding. And yeah, it's also a good opportunity to get to know professors and network. If that's something that you're interested in. But yeah.
Thank you, Eden. Okay, Ariana.
Hello, my name is Ariana. I am a junior studying decision science, and my internship was at Zoo Miami in the elephant department, and my title was animal care intern, which is just a fancy way of saying zookeeper. There's different terminology that's being moved away from in the field. So kind of random, doesn't really apply to decision science or research, but I am extremely passionate about animals and I really love animals. However, I did some vet experiences when I was in middle school and high school and realized that was not the route for me, but I still wanted to be involved in animal care. So I took the approach of the zookeeping field. So in the picture on the bottom, Peggy is on the left and Mabel's on the right. So those are two elephants I worked with. So just to give you an idea of like what kind of like job I did, I worked with 5 different elephants. There were 3 Asian elephants and 2 African elephants. Our days would start pretty early at 7 a.m. and we'd pick up diets. The elephants eat 200 pounds of food a day each. So a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of hay, a lot of cutting vegetables. We'd clean the yards and cut browse. So I would like go around the property and cut like trees and put them in the truck. So there's 750 acres on the zoo, which is one of the biggest zoos in the world. Kind of relating it back to research, we would also conduct like behavioral and welfare observations. So you can tell a lot of like animals' behaviors and how they're feeling based on just pure observation and learning like how they react to certain things. And I also got to watch a lot of training. So seeing what way things worked and seeing kind of like how you condition certain responses. All of the elephants actually participate in their own like medical care. So one of our elephants had a toe issue, and so she would be able to like do her own toe soak with the trainers, which is pretty cool. You can go to the next slide. So the elephant in the front, her name is Nellie, and then she's my favorite elephant, and then the elephant in the back's name is Dollop. So how did I find this? As I said, I was really interested in animals, but I had never like gotten the opportunity to work at a zoo before. So I just started like looking things up randomly. So I found a list of the 50 best zoos in the world, and I kind of like took each one that was in the United States and I started going through their websites. And a lot of the zoos have their internships linked on their website. So you can go look at the internships themselves and different positions. So you can work in a lot of different things. If you're interested in like design and marketing, you can do like billboards. There's also diet prep, certain internships, and a lot of marketing stuff. So another thing that was a really important part of my application was letters of recommendation. They actually require 2 letters of rec for pretty much all internships across the board in the animal care field. It doesn't have to be from someone in the animal care field. So I actually asked my coach for one, and I had one for previous employers. So this isn't like a key point of advice would be make sure you're keeping up with letters of rec. So ask professors now, like it's the beginning of the semester. So I put time into thinking what professors could write a letter of rec for you, and make sure you're going to office hours, you have your Zoom camera on, you're sitting close to the front, you're talking to the professors in class. So make sure that they remember you. So by the end of the semester, you can ask them for a letter of rec and they'll have good things to say about you. Other than that process, after I'd like turn in the applications, I actually turned in the applications late because I didn't, their dates were like wrong online for Zoo Miami, some other places like turned them in fine. And I just emailed the recruiter and I was like, hey, like I've already done all the information, here it is, would you accept it late? And they ended up accepting it late. So even if you see something that's, you know, recently passed, I would still advise reaching out because there's recruiters are definitely willing to work with you. As for the interview, I got an email and I could pick the time, and it was just like a phone call interview. And I also had to submit a cover letter. So make sure you're starting to write cover letters and your resumes are up to date. The Career Center has really great resources if you want to go get them checked out, get a second pair of eyes on them. You can also give them to friends or other mentors that you have. For the next slide, please. This is Peggy again. She was one of the first elephants you saw. So I actually did get to do some research. So another key point, you can find research in anything you're doing. So a part of the internship, you could either build something or do the research. And I was like, I'll just do the research. And so I entitled my research project, Architects of Play. So I ended up looking into like 3 years of data from there's a lot of like data that zoos store. However, like I couldn't put it on my own computer. So I had to use Excel, which is like a huge struggle point because there's so many other things you can do in Stata and R. But I was able to look into like 3 or 4 years of data for all 5 elephants and track the progress that they had made. So I broke down like what you call enrichment into 5 categories. So enrichment can be different kinds of food that elephants are given or different ways they're interacting with people. So I found I like went through all the data, found trends, and then I explored like how different the elephants were different from each other and then how the years were different from each other. And I made recommendations for the team moving forward, which was really nice because they said that no intern had done that before. So I was able to give them like stepping points that they could use moving forward. Next slide. Oh, that was supposed to be cut out. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so I wanted to say, this is something Ariana also said, use every opportunity you're presented with. So I actually like cross-trained, I guess you could say. I worked with a ton of different animals, even though I was in the elephant department. I actually got to come in on my days off and I got to work with sloths, which ended up being like my favorite animals. And I also got to work with like snakes. Everyone always asks about big cats. So I worked with clouded leopards, wombats, koalas. So make sure you're looking for opportunities and asking for them. Other things, look at opportunities that CMU has. So this internship was completely unpaid, which was a huge struggle, but CMU does provide funding. So highly recommend to look into that. I think I use the summer internship experience fund, and that also pays people who are considered underpaid, which is $12 or under. So even if you're getting paid, still look into that. That can help you afford housing and whatnot, because I was living in a different state. Extremely helpful. And then also ask other people in like the field. You don't really know what kind of connections people have. So even locally, or if you know someone random, just feel free, make yourself go out there. Other things, be passionate. If you're passionate about something, go for it. Like you don't have to have a huge name company or something that you think will work 10 years down the line for you. Like do something that you're interested in now. And this has been a great experience for me, and I'm able to like talk about it a lot, and people end up finding it really interesting, even though like zookeeping might not be something that I do down the line. And then you can go to the next slide. I thought questions were going to be all together, so I just like put that there for questions, but that's it.
Oh. Well, thank you, Ariana, and thank you for the plug for the CEF. If anyone's on this call right now, the Summer Internship Experience Fund, we'll be posting it in Handshake next week, and lots of talented young students such as Ariana have had wonderful opportunities because we were able to provide funding through the Summer Internship Experience Fund. And then last but not least, we have Simran.
Hey, hi everyone. So my name is Simran. I'm a senior here at CMU in the math major. Some of the other things that I'm involved in on campus are basically all the math organizations that CMU has to offer, including Math Club, the Association for Women in Math, the Carnegie Mellon Informatics and Mathematics competition. I'm in the process of setting up a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee for the math department here. I've been a TA, and on the side, I play Ultimate Frisbee. So I really like that the math community at CMU is, on the rise. It's getting tighter, and there's opportunities to kind of like mold your experience into what you want it to be. The one thing at CMU, however, that I didn't feel that I had as much access to was research in number theory and algebra. So if you know our math department at all, you will realize that there's a lot of people who are interested in things like combinatorics. That might be something you saw if you took a concepts class, or analysis, applied math, wave equations, partial differential equations, things like that. However, there's not as much on the number theory and algebra side, which is what I'm hoping to do for a PhD. So last summer, I participated in the small RU at Williams College in the number theory and probability group. And the reason that I chose that one was because they did projects in analytic number theory, which is really, tackling problems like distributions of primes and the integers. You might be familiar with a problem, a very famous one called Fermat's last theorem. And that was solved using these techniques from analytic number theory. And so what I really wanted to do was kind of get my hands into the actual techniques needed to prove those kinds of theorems. And that's why I chose this experience. Next slide. Yeah, so the process looked like this. There's a website called mathprograms.org, which contains a long list of things like math programs that you can apply to. So that includes REUs, which, if you may not know, is a research experience for undergraduates. There are programs across the country where you can, where students from lots of different universities come together and participate in research groups. They particularly focus on taking students who don't have those types of research experiences at their own universities. So it's a really good opportunity to meet students from liberal arts colleges where maybe the math program is not as research heavy. I certainly met a lot of really talented math students through that. There's also other things like summer schools that you can apply to on math programs, but yeah, I applied to REUs. The REU cycle begins in January and February. Actually, Math Club is helping students right now apply to REUs. So if you are interested in getting that type of help and you want to know more, you should talk to me or talk to anyone at Math Club about this, because we have all gone through this. The application process looks like writing a personal statement, which includes your past research experience, if any, relevant classes, some indication that you have looked into the project and understand what the material will be, listing things that you hope to learn. And also, hopefully you've done some background reading and you can talk about that in your personal statement to demonstrate how excited you are about the research you'll do that summer. Otherwise, you'll need to get 2 recommendation letters, preferably from math professors. And then you'll want to make a CV, which is just, a laundry list of your accomplishments. If you're a freshman, you might even want to submit a resume with some more words, but hopefully you'll do that in LaTeX. So the process after that was, once you were accepted, you were placed on a short list among about 40 potential applicants. I believe REUs are typically pretty competitive, but the short list is, pretty small. And then you have to do an assignment where you read several papers among a bunch of options. You synthesize the information and you propose research directions so they can get a sense of how you think and really, research-wise, where your head kind of is. So again, some tips on all of that is to, find an older student who understands the field that you're interested in. And getting as many eyes on your personal statement as possible is super valuable. I think also digging into past work done at small, kind of reading through the papers that they published. They're all, co-authored with the person who runs it, whose name is Stephen J. Miller. And you can find these on, maybe I'll just drop the link here, which is archive.org. You can just look at past papers that have been posted for that program. Okay, next slide. So to dig a bit more into the particular work that I was doing that summer. So like I said, I was doing things in analytic number theory, which is really concerned with prime numbers and how they're distributed, and combinatorics. And so the specific projects I was looking at were distributions of zeros of L functions, which are these kind of analytic objects that are very related to prime numbers. And you kind of, a big problem in number theory is to understand the distribution of where these functions are equal to 0. So I was studying those distributions of those zeros. And I was also studying random matrix theory, which is a combinatorial equivalent of some physics research, actually. And really what I was doing that summer was finding the connections between L functions and physics. And that's where everything kind of came together. I think my reflections on, the project was that it was a great opportunity to read modern research in the field, really like seminal work that set the stage for, where research is today. And I had the chance to generalize it, which was really exciting. I also had the opportunity to publish. So I wrote 2 research papers that summer. And I think it really, prepares you to understand what research should be for you if you're ever considering a PhD. You also get some really great mentorship from, mentors like Professor Miller. You get networking with other students who you will hopefully see again and again should you decide to pursue a PhD in math. And of course, that preparation for PhD applications, including things like, do you like research? What kind of research do you like? What kind of math do you like? Just, I think that no research experience you get is ever a waste of time, because if anything, you start to figure out what kinds of things you do like and what kinds of things you don't like, what techniques and, research skills work for you and what don't. And I think that's also super important. So some advice on applying to these kinds of programs is to just constantly read modern research in the field. I know that's really daunting, but I start with just like taking a paper and just combing through the introduction to get a sense of like, what are people thinking about? And I think that that website that I posted, archive.org, is a great place to kind of sort through some research and get a sense of what do people care about. I would take relevant coursework at CMU, like analysis classes, algebra classes, and the such. Another thing is, a plug for Math Club, which is that we have a colloquium every Wednesday where we invite really great speakers to come in and talk about research that is, approachable for undergraduates. I think it can be really daunting at first, but they, give some very friendly problems that you can kind of chew on and get a sense of, when you do apply for RUs, what do you want to be applying for? And then finally, definitely talk to upperclassmen, because they've all gone through this and it's scary at first, but once you've done it for 4 years, it's a lot less scary. So yeah, that's all.
Great. Thank you so much to all of our presenters. And now we're going to open it up to Q&A. You can write a question in the chat, or since that will take time, you can even just unmute yourself and ask a question. So if anyone has questions, you could direct it to a particular panelist or all of our panelists. While you're thinking of questions, I am going to ask a question. Unless, did somebody just unmute to ask one? No, okay. So I just wanted to ask all of you, aside from the technical skills that you developed in your summer experience, what other skills or competencies do you feel you developed during your internship? And this would be thinking more like, soft skills.
I can start this off, or so when I saw that you were unmuted, you can go first. Okay. I would say communication was a huge thing. Being able to talk with different types of people about the work that I was doing. So first and foremost, the 2 professors who, are my supervisors, and people that I look up to, and being able to communicate with them. Also having to send out cold emails to look for data and network, kind of, as well as describe my research to people not in the field. That is something that I've had to do quite a few times. So just giving me a lot of practice there, being able to talk about my work using jargon or without jargon, and explore those different
Great. Okay, so communication skills. Anyone else want to talk about maybe some of the other types of competencies you developed besides the technical skills?
I'm happy to input. So firstly, I agree with everything she said. Definitely those were, key things that I learned. But I think another one was group dynamics, because, there's a lot of people in your project. For me, in my group, there were 16 people. On each of my projects, I think I probably had like 5 or 6 people, kind of all on different wavelengths of the project, working on lots of different parts because they're very intricate. And I think knowing how to communicate with all of those people is very important. And, you know, keeping up that constant communication, not only with your group mates, but also with your research mentor who has 16 people to take care of 5 projects. And so it's very spread thin. So like learning how to efficiently use meetings. I think another thing was, and this one might be a little bit less related to, you know, the actual work, but was supporting other women in the STEM space. I think it's pretty hard to be a woman in STEM, unfortunately, because, you know, it's not exactly constructed for our success, and therefore we must, you know, be there for each other and support each other. So I think I became a lot more prepared, especially, you know, walking into my PhD this fall, to do the same thing for other women and like make the space better in the process.
Wonderful, thank you. Any of our other panelists want to address that? It's interesting that you both brought up the things that I think we see most often from employers that they're looking for outside of technical skills, are like communication and teamwork. So.
If no one else is going to say, I'm going to chime in. I think the ability to construct a proposal that, or especially for research, because the experience I had is we were free to participate with our own projects. So constructing our own proposal could be a very important thing to start with and getting admitted to the program. Before I was admitted in the program, I think I had a meeting with one of the officers in URO talking about my proposal, and I found a lot of problems in my first draft of my proposal. There are some very important aspects of physics that can be very hard to understand, and we need to construct our proposal in a way where people are easy to understand. That's first, and second is we want to show the significance or the importance or the bottleneck we want to tackle is present in the proposal, and this is very important for people to recognize the importance of the work. And thirdly is just typically literature skills or writing skills, where we need to construct our ideas thoroughly based on premises that we can set up as mutual knowledge, and we would be able to communicate easily for that. I think proposal aspect maybe can expand to more like business world or industrial world, but this is a very important skill before anything happens. We want people to accept us.
And Alex, did you get any, who did you get feedback from on the proposal?
I don't recall her name, but
but you did, yeah.
I
Maybe
did.
Somebody in the role, like whether it was from the undergraduate research office. And I know Simran hit on something, touched on something really important, is just getting a lot of different eyes on things.
Yes, the critiques are very, very useful for me.
Okay. Any of our participants today, just people viewing this who have any other questions, once again, just feel free to unmute. I did also want to ask about, did anyone have any sort of official interview process for their experience? I know for our reuse, it's more like you're submitting your personal statement, but you know, were there also interviews, and how did you prepare for those?
Yeah, I can sort of, start answering this. But yeah, I had an official interview. I think since I got this internship at the same time that I was in the Washington semester program, they really provided a lot of guidance for being able to conduct those interviews. So I know one of the things that they told us was to write up a document just with potential interview questions and to already answer on that document, just to start brainstorming ideas of sort of potential answers that you could give. So for example, if they ask you to, even something that you might think is not hard to do, but like introducing yourself, sometimes that can be very nerve-wracking, talking about your experience and everything. So having a direct answer written out and sort of laid out much beforehand, that really helps in the interview process. I think that really helped me in terms of having a clear idea of what I wanted to say. And then just in terms of the interview itself, usually I think in international relations type interviews, there's not really a lot of rounds of interviews. I know that that's something that I've heard is common in like sort of STEM-based internships. But I think for IRP specifically, it's just one interview, at least in my experience. So it was kind of just really a conversation, just trying to have a very easygoing conversation with the person who was interviewing me. So I think, yeah, those tips really helped.
Anyone else?
Maybe I'll mention that like typically you don't get interviewed for RUs, but I actually interviewed for the CUNY Baruch one. So if you're applying to that one, it does have an interview process. It was very much like a conversation where he was like telling me about the projects that he would be interested in working with me, and like just getting a feel for my background and whether I was interested in them or not. So, you know, just something to keep in mind.
And really, do any of our panelists have just any other closing? Maybe as somebody else was talking, you thought of something, anything else you would want to share? Please feel free to do that now.
I think something that was brought up before earlier, I think by Alex, was the sense that sometimes you come into these experiences without having a lot of prior knowledge on the subject. I know for me it was really nerve-wracking coming into this internship because I felt like I didn't really know about some of the topics that I would be working on. But I think the biggest thing is to keep your mind open. If something does interest you, definitely pursue it. Try to ask a lot of questions. I think that's something that helps you grow, and ultimately an internship is supposed to be a learning experience and a place where you're able to build up on those skills that you learn in class and apply them. So I think it's a really great opportunity to be able to grow, not just academically, but also in these other skills that a lot of the other panelists mentioned before.
Thank you, Ariana, on those words of wisdom. I can say how much I learned today, and I'd like to thank everybody, the participants, and everyone that joined us today for this excellent presentation. I did want to tell you that there are 3 other presentations after this one. The next one is on data and engineering session. If you go into Handshake, you can find the link if you're interested in attending that as well. And then there's one on business after that, and I think something with computer science. But yeah, please take the time to visit those as well. And did want to tell you also that we are recording this session, and this recording will be available for 2 weeks on the CPDC website. So thank you all for attending, and enjoy the rest of your semester. Thank you all very much.